Should a spiritual teacher wait for the awakening of a real spiritual need in the disciple? Does the sage not have the power to induce this awakening? True, a teacher should wait for the real question to arise in the disciple. Preaching or teaching to those who are not receptive equals to sowing on a rocky soil. But the sage is able to transform this rocky soil into a fertile one. For some, he can do it all of a sudden. For others, he will go progressively. But the sage usually does not do that with words or oral teachings. A single look from a sage is sufficient to change an atheist into a religious man, a libertine into a yogi. That was the daily miracle that Ma was able to do. But this transformation was by the awakening of the divine power, which is latent in everyone. Once this awakening is realized, there will be a fertile soil for verbal teaching, if this is still needed. Does the awakening of the inner energy, given in some cases by the guru, does it lead sometimes to an increase of ordinary desires? When inner energy, that is, the power of Kundalini, is awakened by the power of the guru, or by yoga exercises, or even spontaneously, the first effect is indeed an intensification of desires, and even of the basic desires. Ma one day told me, kama, sexual desire, anger, and Bhagavan Shakti. This is the divine energy, and a term Ma used to designate the power of Kundalini. These move side by side. And with both fingers, she showed me how both movements were intimately intertwined, but going in different directions. What we are looking for in reality, in the satisfaction of our desires, is the bliss of the self. But by trying to obtain this bliss in the sense objects, we are going in the wrong direction, because these objects are only a reflection of the bliss. This is similar to a child who is ready to embrace his own image, which he has seen in a mirror. Then what is necessary is to reverse the dynamic of the process and to bring it back to its source, which is within ourselves. When the guru awakens the energy, this inner energy, they give intensity to this double movement. It is up to the disciple to choose its own direction, towards the top or towards the bottom. But the guru will only awaken Kundalini when he has tested many times the disciple to be sure that he will be able to master the violent passions that this awakening might produce in the beginning. There is a whole process of preparation towards that goal. Apart from the moral discipline, the effort for self-control and such things, There is a whole technique for the purification of the psychic channels, the nadis. Only then will it be possible for the disciple not to be taken away by the tidal wave that the awakened Kundalini may produce. Why are teachings related to Kundalini traditionally kept secret? Kundalini is a primordial power which goes beyond spoken words. When she awakens, the sadhak or spiritual aspirant dresses her up in some ways with the thoughts stored in his unconscious through the samskaras and vasanas. For example, for a Hindu, she will take the form of his chosen deity, such as Krishna or Durga. For a Christian, it will be Jesus or Mary. It depends, of course, if the person is a true spiritual aspirant and has already attained a degree of mental purification, because an accidental or forced awakening of Kundalini without the help of a guru can lead to a catastrophe. You are asking why the teaching of Kundalini is secret. And to be honest, there cannot be a teaching of Kundalini because they cannot express with words what is beyond words. And if we try to do so, the disciple would interpret the words according to his own mental frame. And this would be similar to the story of Ramakrishna, where a man who was born blind wanted to explain the meaning of the words white as milk. And a friend explains to him that milk has the color of the swan. And to make him feel what a swan is, he shows by gesture the shape of the swan's neck. The blind man touches his friend's arm and happily goes around telling others, "I know the meaning of white as milk." And he starts showing the gesture made by his friend, which is only the shape of a bent arm. On the path of meditation, be it devotional or non-dualistic, you have mentioned the existence of kriyas. That is to say, meditation exercises that are spontaneous and found by oneself and practiced for a period of time. Can you be more specific about this? Kriyas are exercises which are most often pranayama, which can be associated or not with the mantras. And they are designed to facilitate the meditative state when we cannot obtain it right away. They are very useful for most spiritual aspirants, but these are only necessary for those to whom a meditative state does not come right away. And they are very useful for those spiritual aspirants, but they are not necessary for those to whom a meditative state comes naturally, as I said. One day in a private interview with Ma, she gave me a few kriyas. I do not know why. I said in a low voice, as if talking to myself, to want to do something? That is precisely the obstacle. And immediately Ma said, kriyas are useful to fight sleepiness. However, when the guru has given you kriyas, they must be practiced, whether or not you deem them to be useful to you, out of the pure veneration for the guru, out of the love for them. As far as spontaneous kriyas are concerned, they have been mentioned by Ma during what she said to call her sadhana kale, the play of her sadhana. These were mainly meditative postures, asanas or mudras, which came spontaneously. They at times take place with the ordinary spiritual aspirant during the awakening of Kundalini. But in this case, they have little interest and may produce pathological deviations if we get too attached to them. Ma used to give yoga or meditation exercise to some of her disciples or visitors. When she was alive, she asked them to be kept secret. But now she has left her body. Why do we not write them? Like, for example, one has written the 6 yogas of Naropa after his death. Ma used to give kriyas to some of her disciples, and she asked this teaching to be kept secret and not to be communicated to anyone. It is difficult to know if she asked for secrecy from all the people who had received these instructions, because probably there are certain people who have received them and will not even speak about it. That is why I can only speak with certainty on my own case. When she was teaching me a kriya, she was always telling me at the end, "Kisi ko mat bolna." You can't tell anyone. One time she even added, "This is a secret kriya." You ask me if now that Ma has left her body, these secret instructions could be written down and published. I do not think that it could be possible. The recommendations of a guru does not lose its authority when the guru leaves his body. Anyhow, the guru is ever present, even if he has left the body. If one of the guru's disciples has attained realization herself and has disciples, he or she could then communicate these instructions to them, but that would probably be done also under a vow of secrecy. How can it be, and is it true, that Ma had to surround herself by pure people, purity providing her nourishment? This is like saying that the doctor must be surrounded by healthy people, because that is the way he earns his living. Ma had taken a physical form mainly to help people in their search for the Supreme Being. This search can only be undertaken through mental purification. Ma was surrounded by people who needed to be purified. She did not have anything to do with perfectly pure people because they did not need her. Of course, the people surrounding her were not, except in rare cases, vicious individuals, because these kind of people do not wish to entrust themselves to a sage. But it is true, nevertheless, that those who serve Ma had to be capable of observing certain rules of physical purity, such as chastity, pure food, and personal hygiene. But if Ma kept them by her side, it was because they needed her help for the purification of their minds. Ma used to say that it was our good conduct that would keep her in good health, but alas, she fell ill quite often. It is also true that her body was an extremely sensitive instrument. If she had assumed a physical form, it was not to protect her body, but to absorb the bad karma of her devotees. And it is astonishing how much that body could absorb and yet maintain a relative equilibrium. Well, one of Ma's early devotees, Baiji, says that the name of Ma is the unique mantra. But he also says that the mantra should be learned from a teacher and should be pronounced correctly in order to bear fruit. It seems that the result can be obtained by faith in the name of Ma, or knowledge, the correct recitation of the mantra. But which of the two is it? There are two elements in the mantra. One is its intrinsic value as a word of power. The other is the faith that the disciple has in the force of his mantra. These two elements strengthen each other mutually. That is, the more the disciple has faith in the mantra, the more he is infused with the power, and vice versa. If a mantra is known as being a source of power, the faith of the disciple will come naturally. More so, if the mantra has been passed on by a guru one loves and venerates, and when a sadguru gives a mantra to his disciples, he passes on spiritual power to them at the same time. Then the repetition gives power to it. Thus, the repetition of the mantra and the awakening of the power will be completely linked. But the essential part is always the faith and the spiritual intensity of the disciple. Any form can lead to realization if the sadhak firmly believes that it is a powerful mantra. For those like Baiji, who was intensely devoted to Ma, just saying her name is enough to evoke her presence, and it will lead them towards union with the Sadguru in the physical form of Ma. However, for the ordinary spiritual aspirant, it is preferable that he repeats the mantra given to him by the Guru during the initiation. And repeating his mantra assiduously, true faith will come to him, and his spiritual intensity will progressively increase.